The aim was to save her son. Instead, she spawned a monster. Brand new drama Frankenstein, tonight at 9 here on ITV1.
Bursting at the seams, a new report reveals 2 prisons have been converted to house just foreign inmates. Critics say it's adding to the problem of overcrowding.
Asking for help, Kate and Jerry McCann make a direct appeal to the people of Spain and Portugal for information about missing Madeleine.
United in grief, friends and family rally around the children orphaned in the Portuguese beach tragedy. That's what we're talking about on the News Hour today. It's Wednesday, October the 24th, 2007.
Hello, good morning. You're watching the News Hour. It's just gone 6 o'clock. We'll have more on those stories in just a moment.
Plus, a leading charity is calling for better regulation of sale and leaseback schemes offered by some mortgage rescue companies. We talked to one woman who lost her home after signing up.
And we meet the face of this year's Poppy Appeal, hoping to raise awareness about the plight of service men and women killed and injured, not just in World War II, but in more recent conflicts like Iraq.
But first, let's get today's weather with Claire.
Hello, good morning. Well, the best of the weather today will be across Northern Ireland and Scotland, perhaps northwest England and northern parts of Wales. But this morning we have to contend with the mist and the fog. The winds are picking up down towards the southeast, dragging in some cloud, and that cloud will continue to push its way ever southwards and eastwards through the day, perhaps even the odd spot or two of rain. Further north, as you can see here, it's going to be absolutely lovely. Enjoy the sunshine whilst you can. Temperatures struggling, though, particularly under all that cloud in the south. Cordelia.
Thanks, Claire. Well, it's emerged this morning that 2 prisons in England are being used solely for foreign inmates. A report from the Prisons Inspectorate claims that if the move is a success, it could lead to a network of foreign-only jails. Tiffany Royce reports.
Britain's prisons are bursting at the seams. Only a few hundred places remain. Some inmates are being kept in police cells, whilst others are being released early. And further pressure is being put on the system by the huge number of foreign nationals behind British bars. A new report from the Prisons Inspectorate has revealed 2 prisons have now been converted to deal exclusively with foreign criminals at a cost of more than £15 million. Bulwood Hall in Essex has 184 inmates and Canterbury Prison has 284. None of them are British citizens. There are 81,533 prisoners in Britain today. 14 years ago, 3,500 of them were from other countries. Today, that figure has leapt to more than 11,000.
The answer is for the Prime Minister to keep his promises and remove the foreign national prisoners who he promised he would deport. There are 11,000 of these prisoners. That is 1 in 7 of the prison population.
The Ministry of Justice says it's now reviewing the role of these prisons, but it's easier to provide specialist facilities like language and immigration services in one location, as well as speeding up the deportation of foreign criminals.
Tiffany Royce reporting there.
Let's catch up on the rest of the news. Here's Priya.
Thank you, John. Madeleine McCann's parents are to launch their own investigation to find their missing 4-year-old daughter. Kate and Jerry will use a private detective to man a confidential 24-hour phone line for anyone with information about Madeleine. Well, Jackie Kabler is in the McCann's home village in Leicestershire. Jackie.
Good morning, Priya. Yes, the McCanns apparently have the full cooperation of the Portuguese police in their latest venture. This 24-hour phone line, manned, as you said, by private detectives, will be launched in an appeal by the McCanns on Spanish television later today. Now, this 24-hour number will be available to people in Spain, Portugal and North Africa to call if they have any information at all about Madeleine. In this television interview that they do in Spain, the McCanns are going to say that they do believe their daughter is still alive and that they welcome the fresh approach to the case that's being taken by the new head of the investigation in Portugal. And meanwhile, back here in Britain, stories continue to appear in the newspapers about the McCanns. Excuse me. In the Daily Express today, for example, a waiter at the Portuguese hotel where Madeleine went missing says that he was stunned in the days following the little girl's disappearance when Jerry McCann organised a tennis game. He went off to play tennis with another English couple, and the waiter said he was stunned by the couple's lack of emotion and also the lack of affection they had for each other, apparently away from the cameras. However, of course, the McCanns have continued to protest their innocence in this case. They say they had nothing whatsoever to do with the disappearance of their daughter, and they're very much hoping, according to their advisors, that this 24-hour phone line will throw up some new information.
Jackie, thank you. More than 500,000 people have been ordered to evacuate parts of California that are being engulfed by massive wildfires. Fierce winds are fanning at least 16 fires stretching from Santa Barbara to the Mexican border. Carla Romano is in Los Angeles this morning for us. Morning, Carla.
Good morning. Yeah, well, this is the third day that Southern California is on fire. And the firefighters here are admitting that they are fighting a losing battle because of the weather. 7 counties across Southern California, all up in a blaze. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger declaring the area a state of emergency. I'm hearing, now you mentioned that figure, 500,000. I'm hearing reports close to 1 million people that have been evacuated from their homes. And that's more than the people that were evacuated during Hurricane Katrina. 500,000 people have had to flee their houses in San Diego alone, which has been the hardest hit area. Over 400,000 acres of land burnt, 5,000 homes destroyed. At the moment, about 6,000 to 8,000 homes are under threat. President Bush going to come on Thursday. He's already said that he's going to send in some troops and provide aid. It's all about the weather. Unless those winds abate, it's just going to get worse.
OK, thanks, Carla. Locals living near the beach in Portugal, where 3 parents drowned trying to rescue their children, say the tragedy was an accident waiting to happen. 3 Britons and 1 German died when they attempted to help the youngsters. Our correspondent Jonathan Swain joins us now from Portugal. Jonathan.
Good morning. Well, half-term wasn't supposed to end like this, was it? This morning, 2 children are waking up as orphans and a man is waking up as a widow. And there are serious questions being asked of this resort as well this morning. Now, one of the orphan children is Rosie Fry, who you have a picture of, I believe, who's pictured with her friend Lydia Dinsmore, whose mother was also killed in this terrible tragedy. Now, I also spoke to a local man here yesterday who was a local surfboard instructor. And he was down on the beach and he saw the family playing around in the waves. He wanted to walk up to them and tell them about the dangers of the undercurrents, but he saw them then leave the water, and he then thought that that was fine for him to leave the beach, and he didn't realise that they would go back in and continue to play around those strong rip currents which just swirl around a rock which is just on the beach. And some serious questions also, as I say, being asked about this resort. There were no lifeguards on duty here yesterday. It was the end of the season, but yet still British tourists are still here, of course. It is now half term, and there are signs up and around warning about the currents out there, but not adequate enough. And Mr. Dinsmore, whose wife was killed in this tragedy, not only is he looking after his children, but he's now comforting Rosie Fry and George Fry, who have lost both their parents.
Thank you, Jonathan. Spanish police are continuing the search for a British woman who disappeared after her 7-year-old daughter was seriously injured in a fall from a hotel balcony in Mallorca. It remains unclear how Gianna Cooper from Cambridgeshire fell on Monday morning and why her mother Sarah has gone missing from the resort. Flu vaccines aren't helping to cut the number of hospital admissions, according to a new report. Millions of pensioners get the jab each year at a cost of £115 million to the NHS. But research shows that there's no evidence it prevents more serious illnesses from developing. The official advice, though, is that it's still important for vulnerable people to have it. Look at what's on our website this morning. Why so many people don't understand the impact of interest rates on their mortgage. Would extra holidays stop us from taking a sickie? And did you have a good night's sleep? Tell us in our online poll. All that and more on GM.TV. Finally, Queen Elizabeth I came back to life last night, well, on the big screen at least. Kate Blanchett was in the at the UK premiere of The Golden Age, in which she plays the Queen for the 2nd time. The film is released on November the 2nd. Now then, it's 8 minutes past 6. Back to Cordelia and John.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's have a quick look at the morning papers. Front page of The Independent. Amazing picture there of the disaster in California that Carla was telling us about a moment ago. Telegraph leads on a report saying the population of the UK is going to hit 70 million. The Guardian has a story saying Lord Steele, architect of the 1967 Abortion Act, said he never realised that so many abortions would take place under that act. It's now been used as a form of contraception, and he's amazed at that. A-levels face axe. That was an announcement by the Secretary of State for Education yesterday in favour of diplomas. What do you got?
Daily Mail, talking about flu jabs here, they're claiming, or they're reporting that vaccinating millions of pensioners against flu each winter does nothing to cut hospital admissions. That's according to a new report. The Daily Express, more of what the waiter saw. The father, Jerry McCann, played tennis after she vanished. We'll be talking to the family spokesman, actually, later on, putting that to him. And The Sun, orphaned by the ocean, this tragic story we've been reporting on yesterday and today. A portrait of the perfect parents who drowned saving their kids.
Time now is 9 minutes past 6. Time for sport. The back page report, a goal fest for British clubs, dominated by Arsenal's record 7-0 win over Slavia Prague in the Champions League. Joined now by the Daily Mirror's Darren Lewis to talk about all of that. I mean, we hardly have enough time to include all these goals. It was brilliant, wasn't it, last night?
I'll tell you something, I've got a couple of cue cards with all the goals on them because there are so many. 12
Absolutely
goals
right.
last night. And
let's have a look at the Arsenal ones. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Cesc Fabregas starting off the goal spree. That's a fabulous one from Heleb too. And I'll tell you something, this equals Arsenal's record win, or rather the record win in the Champions League. Juventus against Olympiacos, 7-0, that was 4 years ago.
That's right, that was Walcott got one there.
A couple of players really coming of age in this match. Theo Walcott there, super goal, very Thierry Henry-like. And Thierry Henry, I just wonder about him because he left saying he wanted to go to Real to win things. This Arsenal side really looking as though they're going to be the ones to win things. Super performance last night.
Unstoppable. I mean, were you surprised by the margin they won by? Because Slavia Prague are not a bad team, obviously wouldn't be in the Champions League if they were.
No, they're not. And I tell you what, they are the champions of the Czech Republic. I think what I'm more surprised by was the manner of the victory. They're all playing with so much confidence. And everyone says, and I do agree, that they've played with this confidence since Thierry Henry left the side.
Interesting thought. Manchester United did rather well too. 4-2 away from home, albeit at Dynamo Kiev. Can't be bad.
Wayne Rooney, rampant. That first goal was by Ferdinand, but there's Rooney there. 7 goals in 6 matches he's scored. England may not be doing the business, but Wayne Rooney certainly is. And Cristiano Ronaldo's goal, that was the third, the fourth one there as well, a penalty from Ronaldo. United looking good, top of their group, should go through.
Yeah, this is the response, one of the responses. It was 4-2 in the end. Congratulations to them, they're in a very strong position. Rangers did well, but not well enough against Barcelona last night. I mean, they got a point, didn't they?
You say that, John, but I think a point for Rangers against Barcelona is a super result. Some people may even say the result of the night. We talked about Henry before, and he's part of what people say is the most feared lineup in club football, but they couldn't score against Rangers. And I'll tell you something, here's a good omen. Konrad Plautz, the referee in that match, he refereed Rangers when they played against Inter Milan and went through to the second phase 2 years ago. A good omen for them.
Worth thinking about. Tonight, of course, some interesting games. Liverpool have to win, don't they? Because they're in a bit of trouble. They go to Turkey. Tough game.
It's a tough game. They should beat Besiktas. I was in Besiktas last year when Spurs beat them in the UEFA Cup. Some people nonsense about being a hellhole. It's a lovely place, Istanbul. Scene, of course, of the Champions League triumph of a couple of years ago. Liverpool should beat them.
And Chelsea against Schalke?
I think Chelsea should do well. Home record, fantastic, as we all know. Abraham Grant really stamping his mark on the team. And I think Celtic out at Benfica, aren't they? Out Benfica, and they beat AC Milan in that infamous last game, Dida. Theatrics, we know all about that. They should win.
Excellent. Darren, good to see you. Thanks very much, Dee, for being with us.
Pleasure.
OK, you're watching the News Hour on GMTV. These are the headlines you're waking up to this morning. 2 prisons in England are being used solely for foreign inmates. A report by the prison inspectorate claims if the move is a success, it could lead to a network of foreign-only jails.
Madeleine McCann's parents are launching their own investigation to find their missing 4-year-old daughter.
And more than 500,000 people have been ordered to evacuate parts of California that have been engulfed by those massive fires we've been featuring for the last couple of days.
Now, the Chief Inspector of Prisons has revealed this morning that 2 jails have been set aside to house foreign inmates awaiting deportation. There are now more than 11,000 foreign nationals being held across the UK at a time when the prison service is struggling to cope. Well, I'm joined now by Nick Herbert, MP, or the Shadow Justice Minister, and Francis Crook, you're the Director of Penal Reform. First of all, can I start with you? What's the Conservative Party reaction to this news? 2 prisons, foreign inmates.
Well, I think people will be surprised to learn that whole prisons are devoted to having foreign national criminals, but I don't think that's really the issue. It may make sense to keep all foreign national criminals in one place. The point is that there are actually 11,000 of these criminals now. That number has doubled under the current government. It's 1 in 7 of the whole prison population. And Tony Blair and then Gordon Brown made solemn promises to deport foreign national criminals. And the question is, why haven't more of them been deported? This is at a time when the prisons are absolutely chock-a-block full, and the government is releasing prisoners early onto the streets in order to deal with that situation. So over 6,000 criminals have been released onto our streets. 1,000 of those have been violent offenders and a number have gone on to reoffend. And the question is, why is the government doing that rather than freeing up space in our jails by returning foreign national criminals to the countries of origin, which is what they promised to do?
So let's just get this clear. You're not against, in principle, the idea of foreign inmates being kept in foreign-specific jails?
No, I don't think that is a concern. I mean, I think it's surprising, and I think it reveals to the public the fact that the prison population of foreign nationals is so big. 1 in 7 of the whole prison population. And so I think when people are, reading the headlines and saying, why are these violent prisoners being released early because apparently there isn't enough space for them, then to learn that there are still thousands of foreign national prisoners who the Prime Minister promised he would remove, they'll question why that promise was made. Did Gordon Brown know that he wasn't going to remove them? Has he been unable to do so? Or was it just yet another example of a cynical pledge being made to grab a headline that he had absolutely no intention of keeping?
Well, Francis Crook, can I just turn to you now? Presumably the cost of caring for these foreign national inmates, well, it's double the cost of caring for a British national. It's a huge burden.
It is a huge burden, but of course it is a little bit more complicated because many of them are EU nationals, and if you deport them, they could come straight back again because they have the right to do that. There's also the problem that foreign nationals can't get early release or parole, so they tend to serve much longer than British nationals. So, in fact, there is an irony here that if you're a foreign national, you'll serve a much longer time. There are a lot of problems in the system, but the idea of holding foreign national prisoners in dedicated prisons isn't necessarily a bad one if they get proper services, and if then the immigration services can deal with them promptly and efficiently and fairly if they know where they are, which of course you're right, it has been a serious problem with that.
And just lastly, do you think that's being done? Are they being done?
I don't think it is being done. I've been to Bulwood Hall recently. When I last saw it, didn't have any workshops, so you're holding a whole load of foreign nationals maybe for years and years and years with nothing to do all day.
OK, thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Now then, time 16 minutes past 6. Very good morning to you if you're just joining us. A Poppy appeal with a difference is launched today. It's hoping to highlight the often inadequate support given to service personnel and their families, including those killed or injured in recent conflicts. Matt Arnold is down in Richmond, Surrey, with more details. Morning, Matt.
Good morning to you, John. Of course, we take our inspiration for Poppy Day from the Canadian surgeon John McCrae, who famously penned, "In Flanders Field, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row." 2 actual crosses from the Great War and the Second World War here, marking the graves of unknown soldiers. And of course, the conflicts have continued apace ever since. We've had Northern Ireland, the Falklands War, Bosnia, Afghanistan and Iraq, to name but a few of the recent ones. So it's with a real sense of pride that the people in the poppy factory here go about their work. 36 million poppies they've turned out for Poppy Day this year, and they're already starting on orders for 2008. And of course, this year, as you mentioned, John, is underpinned by the notion that the government aren't doing enough to look after our servicemen and their families. Tina Thompson and her son Aidan fall into that category. We're going to be talking to them in a moment. They feature on the posters in this year's campaign. But also the song you're about to hear, underpinning their story, is from this year's Poppy Day single, the first time we've had one of those as well.
A Poppy appeal poster that means so much more to a mother and son facing life without their loving husband and father. But this year there's a political edge to the Poppy campaign, with the government accused of breaking the military covenant, which promises fair treatment to soldiers and their families. Tina Thompson and her son Aidan, who feature in the poster, receive just a part pension, not a full widow's war remit. Mick, seen here serving in Iraq in 2003, was killed in Cyprus when his motorbike collided with a 4x4 on his way to work. Because Tina's claim was after the new Armed Forces compensation scheme was announced, it was rejected. The Legion's emotive poster campaign is designed to highlight the lack of support for injured soldiers and their families, and aims to make us remember the 40,000 families who need our support.
Dave here is a former staff sergeant in the army who's really benefited from the campaign. He had free accommodation with his job for the first 5 years that he's done it, and he's been here for many years since. Another quick first for this year, they're piloting 200,000 of these stick-on poppies. So you might see one of these this year where you don't need a pin. John, back to you.
Thanks very much indeed, Matt. We've got ours here. We'll all be wearing them from Monday onwards. But meanwhile, let me introduce you again to Tina Thompson, who was featured in that report by Matt and her son Aidan. As Matt was saying, you've been denied compensation because of the circumstances in which your husband was killed. He's on his way to work rather than actually actively serving in the military at the time. He must be feeling rather badly done to.
Yeah, I did feel very let down because nothing was explained to me about, you know, the different forms of compensation. It was just when I got back to England, I filled out a load of forms and it went from there, basically.
How are you coping on your own with Aidan? I mean, financially and emotionally, obviously, because it's been a big loss in many regards, hasn't it?
That's it. It was really hard losing Mick, and luckily I've had Aidan. He's been my little rock. I don't know how I would have coped without him, because you have to keep going for your children. But yeah, it was hard enough with losing Mick without thinking that I've got another battle on my hands to try and get money.
Well, financially it must be a struggle.
It is, definitely, because we only get a part pension, so it really is, you know, little treats are by the side at the moment.
Now, what do you say to their argument? The Minister of Defence have told us that, I mean, basically, that, as I indicated, that the problem is that he was on his way to work, not actually at work, and they say that even a civilian employer would not offer compensation in those circumstances. They wouldn't compensate someone who was killed on their way to work. They might compensate someone who was at work at the time.
Right, well, I wasn't aware of that argument from the MOD. That hasn't been explained to me before, and I wonder why then. Why did they suddenly change that rule in 2005? Why were they covered on their way to work beforehand? Why did they suddenly decide not to cover it after 2005?
Well, it's a fair question, and one you'll doubtless put in the courts, because you're pursuing this with the help of the British Legion, aren't you?
That's it, yeah. The British Legion have been there supporting us all the way. We've been to court once and we won that, but the MOD decided that no, we're going to appeal that decision, so we're actually going to higher court on the 6th of December.
And generally speaking, there's been a lot of talk in recent... He's dropped his teddy in. You'll get it back in a tip. Yeah. There's been a lot of talk in the last few weeks about the way in which we all fail to actually appreciate what our service personnel do abroad and don't look after them sufficiently well when they come home. Do you share that point of view?
Well, I didn't realise myself until this accident had happened to Mick how let down I felt personally by the MOD, and that they haven't been there and supported me, because I didn't even find out about how Mick's accident happened. I had to find that out myself 2 years after the accident, and there still hasn't been an inquest. And the reason I just keep being told is because it happened in Cyprus, so it takes longer. But a road traffic accident in England wouldn't take 2 years for an inquest.
Well, 2 years does seem a long time, even for an accident that happened in Cyprus, I have to say. But there we are. Well, thank you very much, Steve, for coming in. Let's hope that people's attitude towards our service personnel changes and everyone supports the Poppy Appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us. Find out how you can help with this year's Poppy Appeal by logging on to our website, usual place, gm.tv.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. Poppies from Monday.
Exactly.
Now, in a pre-recorded interview which will air in Spain tonight, Kate and Jerry McCann will appeal directly to Spanish, Portuguese and North African viewers to come forward with information that could help find missing Madeleine. The couple will also launch a new helpline number manned by Spanish private investigators hired by the family. Well, Clarence Mitchell is a spokesman for the McCann family. He's with us now from their hometown in Leicestershire. Clarence, why this appeal in Spain? Why now?
Good morning, Cordelia. Very simply, Jerry and Kate believe that Madeleine is still alive. They cling to that possibility in the absence of anything to the contrary, and they believe it is fundamentally important to get that message out into the region where they believe it is most likely that Madeleine still is being held somewhere, and that's why this phone number is going out. It's more than a helpline, it's an investigator's line, and anybody with any piece of information, no matter how minor they think it might be, can call that line 24 hours a day, and there will be operators who will speak several languages ready and waiting to take that message. If there is any credible piece of evidence that comes in or any information that could lead to her, it will be passed on to the relevant police authorities in whichever country. OK, but interesting though that you're directing it first of all, I believe, to private investigators. Does that mean you've lost faith to any extent in the Portuguese police? Because they've got a new head of the investigation now, right? Indeed, yeah, no, it doesn't mean that at all. Quite the contrary, in fact. We are working very closely with the Portuguese police and continue to do so. Jerry and Kate, in the interview you've mentioned, will in fact welcome the fresh approach that Mr. Rebelo, the new head of the inquiry in Portugal, has been taking, and the renewed focus that his team has had recently on this actual searching for Madeleine. And this really, if you like, is a complementary service. We do have investigators on the ground in Spain and Morocco, and everything that is being done in liaison with the police and certainly well within the law.
The drip of criticism for Jerry in particular carries on today. The front page of the Express claiming that he played tennis right after Madeleine's disappearance was discovered. Any response to that from you today?
For nearly 6 months, we've had a constant stream of ill-informed speculation, unfounded rumour and downright misinterpretation. We're not going to give a running commentary on any of these stories. All I will say is that in the days after Madeleine went missing, the only thing that Kate and Jerry did was to fight hard to find her. They continue to do that. This message that they're putting out in Spain, Portugal and North Africa throughout today into tonight is just the latest phase in that. Kate and Jerry have absolutely nothing to hide. They have done nothing wrong. They simply want to find Madeleine, or at least establish what has happened to her.
OK, Clarence, thanks. Let's hope that throws up some new information. Well, still to come on the News Hour, a leading charity calls for an urgent review of sale and leaseback schemes offered by some mortgage rescue companies. But first, let's get the weather with Claire.
Yeah, well, what about California, these fires? I mean, the terrible wind there yesterday, making the situation even worse. Is that going to continue?
It is going to continue. We've had a look at the weather for the next few days, actually, and it's not looking good at all. Let's have a look and see what's happening. As you can see here, for the next few days, we're expecting brilliant, bright sunshine, hot temperatures, and despite the fact the winds are fairly light inland, because of the strength and the heat of those fires, it does make the wind locally a lot stronger. So that's the picture we're expecting. Take a look. It's absolutely dreadful. It's hell on earth, really, for the people in California at the moment. And I don't think the situation is going to get any better because the conditions are going to remain the same. Let's have a look at the weather here in the UK.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Nestle cereals. Whole grain for the whole family every morning.
It's a quiet start back at home here, and as you can see, not a lot going on. The weather is fairly static, to be honest. We're seeing a little bit more clouds across the far north there, and an area of cloud coming in across East Anglia as well as the southeast. And that's where the worst of the weather will be today. As heading underneath the cloud, there's not a lot to see, to be honest, but we are seeing some mist and fog further north. It does mean, sadly, it's going to be a cloudy and a dull day across East Anglia as well as the southeast, across towards the Midlands, East Anglia, central southern England. But this morning, the problem will be fog and mist, as you can see here, anywhere from central parts of Scotland, down the spine of the country, across to parts of Wales, as well as the West Midlands. And that will only slowly clear through the morning. It's going to feel cold also, particularly, I'd say, across East Anglia and Lincolnshire, with that wind picking up some strength as well. The odd spot or two of rain cannot be ruled out. So the best of the weather this morning, once the mist and fog clears, will be Northern Ireland, as well as Scotland, northwest England, down towards Wales, as well as the West Country. Enjoy the sunshine through the day. Little change, to be honest, as you can see here. For Scotland, you will continue to enjoy that sunshine, some drier weather, extending down towards Northern Ireland and northern counties of England. I'd say the west will be better than the east, and that's because the wind's coming in from a northeasterly direction, dragging in that cloud, and also that little bit of patchy drizzle. So not particularly pleasant there, and temperatures really reflecting that, only up to, I'd say, around 11, even 12 degrees Celsius, where you do see the sunshine perhaps just a little bit high. Yesterday in Glenlivet, we saw temperatures up to 17.6 degrees Celsius. Very different today. It's going to feel a lot colder. So Thursday into Friday, well, not a lot of change on Thursday. Again, it's this southern portion of the country where we're seeing the clouds, also some patchy rain and drizzle. Then all changes on Friday. We're seeing that cloud slowly move in, as well as some outbreaks of rain. And so come the weekend, all change. It's turning windier and also a little bit wetter. Here's your summary. Find out what's in store for the next 5 days on our website, gm.tv.
Good morning, it's 6:28 on Wednesday, October the 24th.
Yes, you're watching the News Hour here on GMTV. In the next half hour, bursting at the seams, a new report reveals 2 prisons have been converted to house just foreign inmates. Critics say it's adding to the problem of overcrowding.
500,000 people evacuated from their homes in California as NASA pictures show a quarter of the coastline in flames. We're live to Los Angeles.
And meeting 3-year-old Charlie Thomas, whose attempts to look like Harry Potter went, well, horribly wrong. We'll be hearing more from him and his mum and dad a little bit later on. Now that it's emerged this morning that 2 prisons in England are being used solely for foreign inmates. A report from the Prisons Inspectorate claims that if the move is a success, it could lead to a network of foreign-only jails. Tiffany Royce has this.
Britain's prisons are bursting at the seams. Only a few hundred places remain. Some inmates are being kept in police cells, whilst others are being released early. And further pressure is being put on the system by the huge number of foreign nationals behind British bars. A new report from the Prisons Inspectorate has revealed 2 prisons have now been converted to deal exclusively with foreign criminals at a cost of more than £15 million. Bulwood Hall in Essex has 184 inmates and Canterbury Prison has 284. None of them are British citizens. There are 81,533 prisoners in Britain today. 14 years ago, 3,500 of them were from other countries. Today, that figure has leapt to more than 11,000.
It's 1 in 7 of the whole prison population. And Tony Blair and then Gordon Brown made solemn promises to deport foreign national criminals. And the question is, why haven't more of them been deported? This is at a time when the prisons are absolutely chock-a-block full.
The Ministry of Justice says it's now reviewing the role of these prisons, but it's easier to provide specialist facilities like language and immigration services in one location, as well as speeding up the deportation of foreign criminals.
That report from Tiffany Royce.
Now let's get this morning's other top news stories from Priya.
Thanks, Cordelia. Madeleine McCann's parents are to launch their own investigation to find their missing 4-year-old daughter. Kate and Jerry will use a private detective to look for her in Praia de Luz. They're making a direct appeal on Spanish television tonight for anyone with information to come forward. More than 500,000 people have been ordered to evacuate parts of California that are being engulfed by massive wildfires. Fierce winds are fanning at least 16 fires, stretching from Santa Barbara to the Mexican border. Carla Romano is in LA for us this morning. Carla.
Good morning. Basically, there's a state of emergency that has been declared here in Southern California. These fires are not stopping. They're raging right across 7 counties. We know that President Bush has agreed to bring in about 1,500 National Guard troops to help with the effort. I'm hearing that close to 1 million people have been evacuated. That's from one news agency. That's more than those that were evacuated from Hurricane Katrina. 500,000 people in San Diego alone, which is the hardest hit. Over 400,000 acres of land has been burnt, 5,000 homes destroyed. Now we're looking at these NASA pictures just now. Incredible. That is the scale of it. That is what we can see there. It is incredible. The skies are just alight here. The big problem is the heat and the wind. 90-degree heat today. It was scorching, and those Santa Ana winds are just making those flames sweep all over the place. And unless that stops, this isn't going to stop.
Carla, thank you. Locals living near the beach in Portugal, where 3 parents drowned trying to rescue their children, say the tragedy was an accident waiting to happen. 3 Britons and 1 German died when they attempted to help the youngsters. Our correspondent Jonathan Swain joins us now from Portugal. Morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. Well, this morning, Roy Dinsmore, whose wife was killed in this tragedy, is not only looking after his own children, but he's also comforting and consoling Rosie and George Fry, whose parents were both killed while trying to save the group of children out at sea. Well, yesterday I spoke to one man who believes he could have done more. Luis Souza is a surf instructor on the beach who wishes he'd warned them.
I was even ready to tell them about the dangers, but I never expect they go again to the same place to do bodyboarding, and they did.
He saw the family and friends being knocked about by the strong undercurrents which flow to the right of this rock. But he left the beach when he saw them leave the water. He didn't realise they'd go back.
We could save this situation, and I'm sorry for all the family.
At sunset, locals and a few tourists came to pay their respects to those that were killed and to pray for the little ones who've been left behind. So could this tragedy have been avoided? Well, there were no lifeguards on duty when this tragedy happened. Even though it may be out of season, but it is half term, still a lot of British tourists around. There are signs up on the beach, but I have to say they don't warn adequately enough about those strong rip currents that are out there. So a lot of serious questions being asked about this resort this morning.
Jonathan, thank you. Flu vaccines aren't helping to cut the number of hospital admissions, according to a new report. Millions of pensioners get the jab each year at a cost of £115 million to the NHS. But research shows there's no evidence it prevents more serious illnesses from developing. The official advice, though, is that it's still important for vulnerable people to have it. Hospitals could be shut down within 24 hours after spot checks by a new super regulator. The body could also have the power to sack doctors and trust chiefs immediately. The plans are expected to be revealed by the Health Secretary Alan Johnson later today. The new regulator would take effect in 2009. Now, 80% of us admit to taking a sickie from work, and only occasionally with a valid reason, according to a report out today. With Christmas just around the corner, firms are being urged to give staff more days off or face seasonal sick notes. Nick Dixon reports.
It's the season of goodwill, shopping, eating way too much,
Hello?
and lots of staff
Yeah, I'm
taking
really not
seasonal
feeling so
sickies,
good.
apparently.
Yeah, no, I think I'm
But
just
who
gonna go
would
straight
do
back to
such a
bed.
thing?
Okay. Bye.
I can admit to that.
Let's go
shopping.
Oh,
you can tell me.
No, never. I'm a very good girl.
with
Never
Jess.
do anything like that.
I don't know how much
I'd never
further
do
from it.
anything like that.
Okay, good. Thanks, GMTV. What about you?
I used to make up really elaborate ones, like I'd look
It's
up
the
medical
season of goodwill,
dictionaries to find
shopping,
something. I used to
eating
make up
way
things
too
like
much,
kidney
and lots of staff
infections
taking
or...
seasonal sickies, apparently.
I know,
But who
I'd
would
put on
do
like a really
such a
sick
thing?
voice and I go, hello.
Oh dear, we seem to have a few problems with the sound on that report. We'll bring you it in our next bulletin. Let's have a quick look at what's on our website this morning. Why so many people don't understand the impact of interest rates on their mortgage. More on why we need more holidays to stop us calling in sick. And did you have a good night's sleep? Tell us in our online poll. All that and more on gm.tv. Now then, it's 6:36. Here's what's happening where you are.
Thanks very much. Good morning. The main stories here in the northwest. England and Everton footballer Phil Neville and his wife Julie have spoken movingly about why they're supporting the Manchester New Children's Hospital appeal. They began backing the charity after their daughter Isabella was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. In an exclusive interview with Granada Reports, the couple have explained why the appeal, which hopes to raise £20 million, means so much to them.
We're trying to raise money to build an accommodation block so parents can stay there and be close to the child, you know, so if your child wakes in the night, you want to look after your child, not a great nurse, but you as a mother, you want to look after that child, and we didn't have that, and we want to help in a small way of trying to provide a facility that will be up there with the best in the world.
The trial of a man from Oldham accused of the killing of an 11-year-old girl more than 30 years ago continues today. Leslie Molseed left her home in Rochdale to run an errand for her mother. 3 days later, her body was found on moorland in Yorkshire. 53-year-old Ronald Castry is charged with her murder. Manchester's Civil Justice Centre opens its doors for business today. The building on the west side of the Spinningfields district cost around £130 million to build. It houses hearing rooms, video link facilities and suites for vulnerable witnesses, and is the largest civil court to be built for more than 100 years. Well, moving on to football, and Manchester United have maintained their 100% start to their Champions League campaign. Rio Ferdinand settled the nerves early against Dynamo Kiev with a well-taken header. Rooney was then next on the score sheet before Ronaldo grabbed a further 2 goals, the first this header and the second was from the penalty spot. Meanwhile, Liverpool are preparing for their Champions League clash against Besiktas. The Reds have never met the Turkish side in a European competition before, but will be without striker Fernando Torres because of a thigh injury. Manager Rafa Benitez says it's a must-win game.
It's clear that we need to go to Istanbul and try to win and see what happens in the other game, and just wait and keep working, thinking about to win every game if it's possible.
Well, that's it for now. I'll be back at 7:05. In a moment, we'll return to GMTV, but first a look at the region's weather.
Rewind the seasons with the Time Renewal collection from Pantene, sponsors of GMTV Weather.
The mist and fog patches will slowly clear this morning with some sunny spells developing. By the afternoon, the best of the sunshine will be out towards the coast. Highs of just 11 Celsius.
Welcome back. 22 minutes to 7 is the time. Quick look at the morning papers. Both the Sun and the Daily Mirror highlight the terrible tragedy in Portugal we've been telling you about for the last couple of days. Daily Mirror headline, simply orphaned. Front page of the Daily Mail, again, something we featured in our news earlier on, vaccinating millions of pensioners against flu does nothing to cut hospital admissions, according to a new report. Daily Express, back with the McCann family. Father played tennis after she vanished. The McCann family, not surprisingly, perhaps refusing to comment on that, concentrating instead on the search of their daughter. Population hit 70 million. A new report featured on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. The Times talks about the announcement yesterday by the Education Secretary that well, some people see it as the end of the road for A-levels and the introduction of a new diploma, which will eventually, anyway, perhaps replace them. On the front page of the Independent, that amazing picture, a very graphic picture of the, well, it is a tragedy now in California, which continues to cause people to leave their homes.
500,000 people.
500,000, astonishing.
Now, when homeowner Shirley Hale got into debt and struggled to pay her mortgage, she was told she could release some capital and stay in the home she loved. 4 months later, Shirley's living in a council house and her home has been boarded up. Well, we'll be talking to Shirley in just a moment. But first, our own Elaine Wilcox joins us from outside Shirley's former home in Hattersley, Greater Manchester.
Yes, good morning, Cordelia. This used to be Shirley Hale's home. It was once her pride and joy. I'm afraid it's fallen empty for the last few months and the vandals have been in. Shirley, who's 72, like many people, was struggling to cope with rising debt, and she decided to sell her home to a mortgage rescue company to release some of the capital from this property. She sold her house for a discounted price to this company. There's nothing illegal in what they did. This is how these companies operate. But when they got into financial difficulties, she found herself powerless and homeless when this house was repossessed. So just how difficult is it for you coming back to the house?
Extremely difficult. I loved that house. It was everything I'd wanted, and I had absolutely loved it. It was home.
Shirley Hale turned to a mortgage rescue company after falling into debt. She'd had a fire at her house and was underinsured. That's when she saw this advert.
They said they would buy your house, pay off whatever mortgage you owe, gives you the residue, and you could stay in your home for a nominal rent, which I thought was brilliant.
Shirley agreed to sell her home for £60,000, £25,000 less than the valuation. She thought she'd be a tenant for life until she was told the company had failed to pay the mortgage and the house was repossessed.
They didn't keep up the payments on the mortgage and I lost my home.
Well, Shirley joins us now with Adam Sampson, Chief Executive of the charity Shelter. Shirley, I'm terribly so you found it very difficult watching that little report there, didn't you? It must be just heartbreaking to see your home.
It is, because you think you're safe and you're not. It's a terrible thing that these people do. They promise you you can stay in your home, you can have money, you can do what you like with it, but that's not the case 9 times out of 10.
Did you have any idea of the risks involved, that you were risking your home when you signed up for this?
None at all.
Nobody warned you?
No.
What did you think you were, what kind of a deal did you think you were entering into?
Well, I thought with it being paid less than the house value that it was quite a good deal. I was only on a small rent. I could stay in it for as long as I wanted, and I was perfectly happy with that idea.
Never wanted to risk your home, and now what's your situation? Where are you living, and
I'm living
how are you
in a
finding
one-bedroom council flat.
Not happy there?
Oh, well, it's a roof, which some people haven't got.
It's a good attitude to have. But what would you like to say this morning to other people?
Please don't do it. Don't do it unless you're with a proper firm. Check, make sure, if you really want to sell it that way, make sure and check that it's not with a little firm who haven't got the money.
Who could risk your home. Well, let's just turn to Adam Sampson from Shelter. Adam, what can we do to stop what's happened to Paul Shirley happening to anybody else?
Well, the trouble is that this is a completely unregulated business. There's no regulations, no guidance, no code of conduct for these type of businesses, and many of them are fly-by-night merchants who simply rip people off. And even if the firm is financially sustainable, and many of them, and in this case it wasn't financially sustainable, even if they are, there's no necessary guarantee that people are going to get the proper value for their home, and there's certainly no guarantee that people are going to be able to stay in their home for the rest of their life. In many of the cases that we see, and we're seeing an increasing number of these, people are kicked out after 6 months because that's when their tenancies come to an end.
So we want regulation?
Absolutely, we need regulation, and we also need people like Shirley to get good advice. You've heard that nobody warned her. Well, actually, people should be warned, because the deals that people are getting into are simply not going to live up to the promises they're being made.
OK, thank you both very much. Well, let's just go back to Elaine Wilcox in Greater Manchester. Elaine, I think you've got a response from the company who's responsible for kicking Elaine out eventually.
Yes, the company which bought Shirley's home is now in administration. They bought 230 properties over the past 5 years and borrowed a massive £19 million. Again, we need to stress that this company hadn't done anything illegal, and they had given Shirley £60,000 for her property. Now, we've had a statement from Richard Dewsbury, the director of Repossession Stopped Limited. He said due to an increasing number of rental arrears, the company ran into cash flow difficulties. Despite our best efforts, both through offered structured repayment plans to tenants and a reduction in overhead costs, we were unable to prevent this situation getting worse. He says to protect our tenants, we put the business into administration in April. He stressed at this time there were offers on the table from third-party investors. He said, but with the exception of 3 lenders, the remainder refused to accept these offers, and instead it was the lenders or the banks who pursued repossession and eviction of the tenants through the courts. Several months on, he said, we still have the same investors willing to purchase, and if their offers were accepted, exchange of contracts could happen in a matter of days. But he says lenders, however, remain unwilling to cooperate. But of course, all of this is too late for Shirley Hale, and now this house, which used to be her home, is owned by an American mortgage company. Cordelia.
OK, Elaine, thanks a lot for that. Might be legal, certainly doesn't seem very fair.
It certainly does not. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. Time now is 40 minutes to 7. You're watching the news hour here on GMTV. And these are the headlines you're waking up to this morning. 2 prisons in England are being used solely for foreign inmates. A report by the Prison Inspectorate claims that if the move is a success, it could lead to a network of foreign-only jails.
Madeleine McCann's parents are launching their own investigation to find their missing 4-year-old daughter.
And in the last hour, police in Leicestershire say they have found 2 bodies inside a burning car, which was parked in a lay-by. We'll have more on that story as soon as we get it. Now then, stand up, sing and make music. That's the message for the start of Youth Music Week, which is launched today. It's a series of charity events to get some of the country's most disadvantaged young people performing and enjoying everything from jazz to drumming. And my old mate composer, Richard Stilgoe, joins us to tell us more about it. Good to see you.
Nice to be here. Nice to see you.
So what's happening? Who's doing what where?
Kids are doing things all over the country. I'm never sure whether you're supposed to call them kids, young people. Anyway,
yes.
People under our age are making music, which is not hard, yes. And it goes on all over London, all over the country, particularly today in the National Gallery. We launched the thing because it's halfway through half term. So kids are available.
And that's what you do in this organisation, this charitable organisation. You encourage youngsters everywhere to take up music. I would say to you, what are the schools doing? Why aren't the schools getting involved?
Oh, we're outside schools. We do very little in schools. We do music on Saturday mornings, in clubs, after school, often with kids who don't go to school at all. And they're the hard-to-get-at ones.
Sure.
And sometimes, if they will do music, they will sometimes go back into school and get involved.
So amongst them we might find a new Kylie, we might find a new Robbie Williams, we might even find a new Richard Stilgoe, who knows?
We find a whole generation of nice people.
Good stuff.
Because if you do music, if you all sing together, if you'll make music together, you learn to work together. And music it's one of the very few things that's good for you that isn't horrible.
Exactly. Now, like the man who drove me to work this morning, lots of people out there will be saying, I remember Richard Stilgoe, he was on Nationwide, he was on That's Live, we've seen him in concert up and down the country from time to time. What's he doing now?
Well, when the music stops, you grab the nearest chair, don't you, in the game? And the chair I got was the chair of youth music, so that's what I'm doing now.
I also know you do a great deal of charitable work with your Orpheus Trust for young people, disabled young people.
Which is fun too.
And teach them music,
yeah.
which is a marvellous job you do. So this lot are going to sing for us now. This is just a part of the National Youth Choir.
For guys at home who want to know where to go, youthmusic.org.uk tells you what's on in your area and where to go.
And it's not too late to join in now.
Absolutely, pitch in, yeah.
Excellent, well, I look forward to that. All the very best to you. This is just a part of the National Youth Choir. They're going to sing I'm a Train, and that was inspired by that famous Turner painting, Rain, Steam and Speed, the Great Western Railway. So take it away, guys. Thanks, Richard.
Look at me, I'm a train, I'm a track, I'm a train, I'm a train, I'm a sugar train. Yeah. Look at me, got a load on my back, I'm a train, I'm a train, I'm a sugar train. Yeah. Look at me, I'm a train, I'm a sugar train. Yeah. Look at me, I'm a train, I'm a sugar train. Yeah. Been a hard days, it has been a hard days, it has been a hard days, it has. I'm a train, I'm a sugar train, I'm a sugar train, I'm a train, I'm a sugar train, sugar train. Yeah. Junga junga junga, junga junga junga, junga junga junga, junga junga junga, junga junga junga. Look at me, train. Look at me, look at me. Look at him, look at him. I'm a train, train. Life that's long and hard. I'm a train, I'm a train, I'm a chicken train. Yeah, going down to the breaker's yard. I'm a train, I'm a train, I'm a chicken train. Yeah, been a hard days. It has been a hard days. It has been a hard days. It has. I'm a train, I'm a chicken train. I'm a chicken train. I'm a train, I'm a chicken train. I'm a chicken train. I'm a train, I'm a train. I'm a chicken train. I'm a train, I'm a chicken train. 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 Train, 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 I'm a 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 train.
Fantastic. Terrific segment. At this time in the morning, absolutely remarkable. Well done.
Now, we all know that children have a remarkable ability to get up to mischief, and none more so than 3-year-old Charlie Thomas. Charlie thought it would be fun to put a cone on his head to look like Harry Potter. Unfortunately for him, the cone became stuck and the fire brigade had to be called to the rescue. Well, Charlie joins us now with his mum Louisa and dad Martin. Hello, Charlie. How are you this morning? How are you feeling today? Okay. Little bit nonplussed by all the attention, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Louisa, what happened?
Oh, we were playing in the field and we were flying his kite, which he had for his birthday. And whilst we were doing that, he ran off and was playing with the cones with his sisters, and he just put it on his head, and we thought that'd be fine. And then he ran over and said it's stuck. So we thought, oh, it's okay, just pull free. But it didn't, and it was completely wedged on.
What did you do to get it off?
Well, we were trying to pull it off, but it was lifting him up off the ground.
Oh, he's only little.
What I love is the expression on his face, which you captured. You took the photograph, didn't you, Mum?
Yes.
I mean, it is just a classic. Act off, little lad.
Now, what did you do next? You were trying to yank it off. He was lifting up. Where'd you go?
We went home, which wasn't very far away. So we went home and tried to put some soapy water on it to try and set it free, and that didn't work. So I thought, no, we're going to have to call 999 and get the fire brigade out.
So, Dad, you called the fire brigade.
Mum called the fire brigade, but they turned up within 5 minutes. They just assessed the situation, and.
Took about 6 of them half an hour to...
Yeah, well, they were there about half an hour altogether.
I was going to say, how did they go about this?
Well, they brought a chair outside, and they sat him on the chair. I think he sat on your lap, actually, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Sat on your lap. And they just knelt down. They were giving him chalk ice as well, because the fireman brought it up and just wrenched it open, and off it popped, so...
How's he been coping since then?
Oh, he's been absolutely fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oblivious to everything that's going on.
Still a Harry Potter fan?
Yeah. Still wearing the hats.
Yeah.
So won't wear a cone anymore, I don't think.
So you're going to keep this? What are you going to do with it? Pride of place on the mantelpiece?
Keep it somewhere safe, yes.
Wait for his 18th birthday, I think. And
Give it back to him when his head's too big to even...
Yeah. Like all parents, embarrass him with his pass.
Right,
We did exactly the same with our son, yeah. Well done. I think you're a hero, Charlie. Well done, sir.
You
Not
are.
saying too much this morning. Thomas Tank Engine fan as well, I see from you.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
Keeping stum.
Keeping stum.
Wise policy.
OK, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. Kate and Ben up next with GMTV today, and Simply Red, who'll be performing their new single.
Yes, and Melinda Messenger's here, launching a new campaign to get families to spend more time together.
But right after the break, it's the weather with Claire.